All right, hello everyone. This is Q&A. Again, I want to welcome on this Q&A. Some may say kind of sacrilegious today, giving a class on Thanksgiving in the States, but it's kind of the way it goes because that's going to be the topic for the day. Should I celebrate Thanksgiving? Is it permissible? Is it permissible to celebrate Thanksgiving? So what's the problem? Problem in general is you'll tell me I'm not allowed to go in the ways of the non-Jews. So today, in general, Thanksgiving all about football and turkey, probably in that order. So there's an obligation. Torah says a number of times, and I've spoken about it a number of times that you're not allowed to go in the ways of the non-Jews, not according to their holidays or anything else. Nonetheless, there is a question. There is the question that comes up, and that is by Thanksgiving itself. There's an opinion, it's a minority opinion, but there is an opinion that Thanksgiving itself started out as a religious holiday. That is, it's a minority opinion. Pretty much the majority opinion is that it didn't start out as a didn't start off as a religious, as a religious holiday. It was kind of all about making peace. I mean, if you know that really the history, kind of making peace with the Indians and then killing them. So yeah, obviously, most people don't care because today we'd call it minhag avosechem b'yadeichem. Yeah, meaning it's like okay, it's like an Asian custom. Asian custom, right? Asian custom more than anything else. Okay, right? That may be true. That may be true. But I would say the problem, we'll get to the essence of the problem in a second. But if you know the history about it, doesn't sound so good. Today doesn't mean anything. Yeah, so today, you tell me, okay, doesn't mean what it was originally set up for. Could be, right? That's probably true. Right? That's probably true. But the issue is if you really know like the history behind it, how can you celebrate it? So you say, okay, right, I'm not really gonna celebrate it, but I do give thanks, I'm happy, I live in a free country, blah blah blah. Very good. Very good. You still have an issue. You still have an issue going the ways of the non-Jews. Now, based on that, whether a person's going to convert, not going to convert, or whatever, and this is the only time to get together with family. Yeah. If it's the only time to get together with family, that you're not going to kill each other or whatever. If the only time you can't get together on Shabbos, can't get together on festivals, right? Many times you cannot get together. There's one time you can get together, right? Where the family gets together. Now, in general, if you get along with family and, again, it is by them, a big thing to get together. So I wouldn't say it was forbidden, right? It's probably the best time to get together. Every other, again, Shabbos and festivals is the problem. So you tell me, or someone will say, but this is problematic. Why? It's problematic because we just said a person is going in the way of the non-Jews. So, okay, that's true. You don't get around that problem. You don't get around that problem. For family harmony, probably push it off. I mean, if it's a big thing. Yeah. If they would make a big thing, family harmony, probably can push it off. And a person can say, but even so, I don't want to participate in it. Maybe it's pagan, other things. Okay. I'm saying, for family peace, if a person's going to do it, worse transgressions. Definitely worse transgressions over here. But I will make one point, and that is Moshe Feinstein, a blessed memory, one of the Torah giants, the last generation of America, would have been Torah giants pretty much anywhere. And Moshe Feinstein as a responser, and someone asked him about making a bar mitzvah of his son came out on Thanksgiving. Right? So you're allowed to make a celebration on Thanksgiving. So Moshe Feinstein said, really, really you could. It doesn't really have, it doesn't really have religious, beginnings. It didn't start out that way. Yeah, again, most rabbinic authorities are gonna hold that. There's minority opinion doesn't hold that, but okay. So the majority opinion is it didn't start out that way. So okay, right? Going in their ways, you don't get around the problem. But Ramosha Feinstein said that just because of the way it looks, even though this person now is 13 on that day, so you want to celebrate that day. So he said, pick another day. Right? Pick another day. In other words, he's telling you it's not a good thing to do. But really, technically, you want to pin him down and say, well, is it permissible? It's permissible. It doesn't say it's forbidden. It doesn't say it's pagan. Yeah, it doesn't say, it's a religious holiday. Right? And even if it would have started out that way, let's say according to this minority opinion, this minority opinion says that's the way it started out. Okay, today it's not that case. It's not that case. Even some want to claim there were certain hymns or whatever, that were said for it. Okay, but for the majority opinion, it's not the case. Right? It's not the case. But still, Ramosha held that really it shouldn't be a problem. Really, it shouldn't be a problem in this case. You're not saying to celebrate it for the sake of celebrating it. That's not what he was talking about. He was saying you're allowed to make a Jewish celebration on that day. Right? We're not talking about just celebrating it. You have a reason to be, celebratory, as we would say. There's good reason to be happy. The person's, son became bar mitzvah. You're going to celebrate. Very good. Right? It's coming of age. It's a huge thing. Right? No question. Okay. Yeah, but the question is, on that day, should you do it? Right? That's the question. If the Hebrew date, let's say, came out December 25th, I would agree you don't do it on that day. Right? That wouldn't even be a question. Right? Why wouldn't it be a question? Because it's their holiday. Their pagan holiday. You don't do something on their pagan holiday. Yeah? You don't do it on Easter. You don't do it then. You don't do it other times. Okay, there's not a pagan holiday. Right? According to most. Yeah, it's not a pagan holiday. It's just it looks bad. Right? It looks bad. So Ramosha held, again, really, there's nothing wrong with it. But at the end of the day, better do it. Better do it on a different day. Right? Better do it on a different day, just the way it looks. Right? And, the way it looks, it's bad. Now, I will mention, again, is there something to be said for living in a country that's, religious freedom? Something to be said for that. Regardless of what's going on now, there is something to be said for that. There's a tremendous asylum for Jews, even though decimated the Jewish people. And you got, you got, 90% of American Jewry don't know nothing from nothing. Right? So on the one hand, it was safe haven. People came there, quote unquote, no discrimination. Okay, that's why they left. That's why they left Europe, they left Russia, all over. Yeah, so they came there. It was a wasteland. There was nothing there. Now, a lot of places have been built up, in Torah, but the majority of Jews in America, they don't know anything. Right? So on the one hand, it's a good place to go, no persecution, so to speak. On the other hand, look what happened. Look what the end result was. Yeah, so in the modern Orthodox community, they'll celebrate it. Most likely they'll celebrate it. They want to give thanks because, they're living in a free country. They can keep Judaism the way they need to, whatever. So they'll celebrate it. Turkey, the trimmings, football, everything in between. Again, maybe there's some that won't watch football. Okay, but by them it's less, it's less of an issue because of how they value the secular world. So that being the case, again, giving thanks is not a problem. That is certainly not a problem. Yeah, we give thanks every day. I need a special day for turkey and football. So I know some people that they bought the turkey before Thanksgiving, they ate it on Hanukkah. Okay. What to be said for that also. But again, you don't get around the problem. You don't get around the essence of the problem. The essence of the problem is society around us has an effect, and going in their ways has an effect. What I see, what I hear, it has an effect. There's no question. There's no question. But the Torah makes very clear. Make no mistake. The Torah makes very, very clear. Going in the ways of non-Jews is bad. Yeah, makes it very clear. Many places. Right? Many places, because the influence is bad. Yeah, the influence is bad. So again, you don't get around that problem, even though the holiday itself, quote unquote, doesn't mean anything. To most people, that definitely doesn't mean anything. It's time to get together with family. Yeah. Busiest travel day of the year in America. Okay. Yeah. It's a good time to get together with family if you can get together with family. Yeah. You still don't get around the problem, but for family peace, it's probably the best time to get together with family if you can stand it. Right? Because that's the only other time you get together, would be Shabbos and festivals, and then, that's a problem. Right? I mean, not for a non-Jew. Non-Jew wants to, visit you on Shabbos and leave and drive and all that. They don't have a problem. Right? It's no issue. Right? They can drive, they can come, they can go. It doesn't really matter. Right? So, by festival, same thing. Whatever. Festival's a little more problematic because, you may end up cooking for them because you're allowed to cook. You might add food for them. So that might be an issue. Shabbos is not a problem because you can't cook. Right? Shabbos is definitely not a problem. So they want to come and go and this and that. You can invite them. Not a problem. Not a problem. But this is the best time. You don't have any issues. You have no issues whatsoever, to go. But again, if it's going to bring out other problems, I would say, then don't bother. Right? But it's still an issue. It's still an issue. Going to the ways of, the non-Jews. So what do you say? So you say, family harmony is worth something. It definitely is worth something. Now, some rabbinic authorities will tell you, even family harmony, forget it. You want to show you're different. 100%. Even though they already know you're different, very good. But you want to show you're totally different. How am I totally different? I don't celebrate the holiday. When I was in the States, 3.5 years, people thought it was absolutely insane. My kids went to school. I said, why shouldn't they go to school? The private school. School's open. So why shouldn't they go? We don't celebrate it. There's no meaning. Right? Kids were in school. Some people thought that was crazy. Like, I would go to school on Thanksgiving, the holy day, Thanksgiving. I said, so eat some turkey. We'll give them some turkey later. And maybe some cranberry sauce. No football. All right? Like, what are you going to do? Yeah? But it's not so simple. It's not so simple because the reality is going in the ways of non-Jews is bad. The influence is bad. No matter what's the reason, and we're going to say it's not pagan and all that. Very good. Yeah, still going in the ways is bad. Does that mean you can't have thanks? You can give thanks. What is it? You give thanks every day. What's the problem? I need one day. One day of the year. To give thanks. The rest of America, why do I need to do that? I need to do that. Give thanks every day. You're happy you're there. Okay. More than that. More than that. Why would I do it? Why would you do it? You have no connection to it. Shouldn't have any connection to it. Yeah. But again, this is the constant battle. And this is what the anti-Semites will say. Say, see, they're different. They don't, they won't even eat turkey on Thanksgiving. They don't even make it a family thing. They're different. Yeah, you're right. We're different. The Torah is different. And it makes us different. And it should make us different. Yeah, 100% should make us different. Right? The non-Jewish anti-Semites will say that. The Jewish anti-Semites will say that. It's like, come on, what's the big deal? gonna hurt you. You watch a little bit of football. It's gonna be such a big day. You make such a big stink, you fanatic. You won't eat turkey on that day. People will say that. People for sure will say that. Like that's going too far. But that's always the question. Are you Jewish or are you American? You say, well, I'm both. Well, there can be conflict. Definitely can be conflict. Okay. Right? But if I'm Jewish and I got to follow what the Torah says, they're values. There are clear-cut values. Right? We're living in this Greek world. That's what the Greeks brought to the world. Worship of the body, the gymnasium, sports, all these things. No great shakes. You're a big sports fan. Okay. Still, one of the single biggest wasted times in the world. But you know what? It keeps people off the streets during the week or during the weekend, instead of like beating up Jews or whatever. So they're busy watching football or basketball or other things, right? Better. It's definitely better. But, people get caught up in all these things that don't matter. That's the point. You get caught up in the culture. So this is part of the culture, right? So you have to have a balance. Obviously, you have to have a balance. But the point is, it would be the best time to get together, with family. We don't have a problem with Shabbos and festivals. It certainly would be. But someone will say you still don't get around the problem. Okay, yeah, but family peace is worth something. It's definitely worth something. Now, there are certain things for family peace you can't do, right? You can't turn the Torah into a pretzel. There are things that are right forbidden. So how can you do it? You can't, right? A Jew marries a non-Jew in your family, right? Brother, sister, whatever it is. You can't go. You're not allowed to go. The Torah says forbidden, or the worst transgressions anyone can do. Okay. Say, nah, come on, this, that. Don't be such a fanatic. That you can't go. There's nothing to do. The only question is how much damage you're going to cause. But you can't go. You can't acknowledge it, right? The Torah's not a pretzel. I can't just do whatever I want. You can't just change it and, take things out, put things in. You can't do that, right? I have to hold to what the Torah says. Be strong in what the Torah says, regardless of what anyone says, right? Well, my Rabbi would say, you don't like it, go eat kugel. That's the way it is. Call me fanatic. Call me fanatic. Call me, backwards, medieval, say whatever you want. The Torah says many times, don't intermarry. Don't intermarry. So if you represent Torah, how could you go? Someone I went to yeshiva with went, to his sister's wedding. He said, but everyone knew I was there under protest. I said, you had kosher food under protest. You were dancing the hora under protest. But I understand, it's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. You don't want to stand out. You don't want to be different. You want to toe the line. You want to quote unquote be a regular guy, be like everybody else. Makes sense. It's a lot of pressure. Jews are very good at putting pressure on. Yeah, extremely good. So what do? Can't do it, you can't do it. Say nothing, nothing personal, to the spouse. You're gonna marry, it's not their fault, it's your fault. You're marrying an non-Jew. I mean, I wouldn't say it so bluntly, but they probably got the picture. Yeah, they say, well, it's my spouse or nothing. You get nothing. Okay, so you get nothing. You get nothing, but what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? There's nothing to do. You can't, even if it's not on Shabbos, it's a day you could go. Well, what can you do? What can you do? There's so many problems. The only question is how strongly you're going to get hit over the head. That's the question, right? But again, if the Torah is true, and God gave the Torah to the Jewish people, they have to keep it. And I have to keep it no matter what, even if you get hit over the head. It doesn't make your life a misery. What are you supposed to do? Torah doesn't change. Yeah, gotta be strong. Someone says we make kosher Thanksgiving food, serve it on Shabbos. Could? Definitely could. I mean, you can do it during the week. You don't have to do it on Thanksgiving itself. Yeah. The Aguda Convention, Aguda Yisrael, do a lot of good work. A lot of good work in America for the Jewish people. They help fight against discrimination and like all kinds of things. Trying get government to do things that that the Jewish people need. vouchers and school vouchers and other things. And they have a Aguda convention usually every year. They have a convention to bring on all these great speakers and rabbis and whatever. And they have a convention on Thanksgiving. I think it's actually this year's going to be next week. For years they used to have Thanksgiving weekend, and for years they had turkey. Now a lot of people there, black hats, whatever, they had turkey. I didn't see a problem with it necessarily. I don't know. I guess the rabbis there didn't seem, an issue with it, whatever. But recently they stopped. I think over, I don't know, the last 10 years, maybe a little bit more. They stopped eating turkey during that time. Now it seems they're doing it after Thanksgiving. Right? I don't know if that's the reason. I don't know if that's exactly the reason, but um, some people don't have an issue with it. You know. So that's the issue. That is essentially the issue. It's called the Agudas Yisrael of America. That's what it's called. Agudas Yisrael. Here, let me put it up here. Agudas Yisrael. They do a lot of good work. A lot of good work. Yeah, they have branches all over the states. And they, what do you call it? They fight for people's rights, to keep Shabbos, keep other things, and they do a lot of good work. They do a lot of good work. It's just it's kind of funny. They have this major convention every year. They do it once a year. They do it once a year, this major convention, and they did it during on Thanksgiving. Usually started Thursday night, and it goes through Sunday, right? Usually goes through Sunday. So they did it for like 3 days. But I have like all these speakers, all these different tracks, and it's a pretty amazing thing. But for years they had turkey. It was sounds like a contradiction. In terms of not conservative by any stretch, or reform. They're other Orthodox Jews. They're other Orthodox Jews. But they didn't see anything wrong with it. Okay, yeah. But recently, I think within probably the last 10 years, maybe a little bit more. I don't think so. I think it's within the last 10 years, or whatever, or it could be longer. Could be longer. Whatever, they stopped serving turkey. I don't know, maybe some people complain, whatever, I don't know. But they stopped serving turkey at this convention, which whole thing is, I think the whole thing about serving is kind of funny, right? It's kind of funny for the whole thing. Anyway, yeah, so um uh what do you call it? Yeah, it's kind of an issue here. Israel's killed more Muslims. The Americans killed American Indians. I don't think that stat is true. First of all, I think America killed millions of Indians. First of all. Second of all, even if Israel killed, Muslims, who are these Muslims they killed? Who are these Muslims? Even if there's thousands, probably are thousands. Yeah. They've been attacked in so many different wars. But even if you don't talk about the attacks, what's going on now? These people don't deserve to die. They deserve to die. Terrorists. Yeah. It's not the same thing. Like, you can't compare that to the Indians getting massacred. That's a totally different thing. Totally different thing. But the numbers are not even close. Not even close. You can ask Claude or ChatGPT how many Indians were killed. Millions. Millions. Yeah. Israel killed millions of Muslims? Millions? Not close. Not even close. But let's say it's even tens of thousands. Yeah. Don't forget how many wars Israel was in. So that's wartime. Yeah, that's wartime. But second of all, even if you say, look at all these assassinations in the last 5 years. Let's say, okay, thousands, hundreds maybe, hundreds maybe, not thousands, but the number's not even close. Not even close. I mean, you go back in history to Andrew Jackson, President Andrew Jackson. Yeah, yeah. Trek of Tears. Trek of Tears from Florida. How many Seminoles and all of them did they kill? Millions. Millions they killed. You're gonna compare that to the Jews that fought a defensive war and killed people? Even if you want to tell me targeted killings. Even all these targeted killings the Jews have had. Yeah, they're all terrorists. They're all terrorists. That's a whole totally different thing. What the Indians do to the Americans? What the Indians do to the Americans? Manifest destiny. America wanted to, conquer the land, go from New York, to California, and settle the land. Very good. You know what? They had a problem with the Indians. They had a problem with the Indians. So what they do? They brought the cavalry. Cavalry's, they said we can't live. They're attacking us. Yeah, they're attacking us. So they came and killed the Indians. And they fought against the Indians. Yeah, that's what happened. This is a totally different thing. It's not even comparable. So what, Jews fighting against Muslim terrorists. I mean, in all the Arab nations that attacked them since 1948. It's not comparable. It's not comparable. And all the numbers are totally skewed. I mean, I'm just curious. Now I'm curious here. Let me just see what the real numbers are. Indians, let's say, killed. Let's see what he said. 94, 600. Okay. Let's say you got 20,000, 16,000, 150. You got 60,000. You got now more than 100. So 30,000, 60, 100,000. So now you have to 200,000, 300,000. I mean, whatever. So, okay, I want to say millions, so it's less. Okay, hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands if these numbers are true. Yeah, hundreds of thousands, but that's a totally different case. That is a totally different case. Yeah, that's incomparable. Yeah, first of all, if you take a look at the wars, you're gonna include, Jews killing Arabs. Is that included? Can't they got attacked. Israel got attacked. They kill people. Okay, so now you talk, all these attacks, Israel killed people. Okay. But now what do? You want to compare. I think we compare to what happens after October 7th. Right? Then they started doing these other killings, targeted killings. Okay. These are the people who massacred, raped women, burned children alive. Yeah, 1,200 people, the worst killing of Jews since the Holocaust. Nothing to talk about. Yeah, so even if they had targeted killings, world's not happy. These maggots are dead. Should be happy. Should be ecstatic. Yeah, and any of them that are going to fight against us, okay. Yeah, but what do the Indians do? They wanted the land. I don't know. Whatever they fought. They lost. They got massacred. This is a totally different thing. This is a totally different thing. Okay, so I want to say there are millions. Okay, it's hundreds of thousands. Right? As there are 300,000, maybe more. Okay, right? I thought it was much more. I thought 1 million people died in the trek of Tyr, but whatever, I'll research that. I'll do some research on that. That's a number I seem to remember, but could be wrong. And still, those numbers, even if you say 300,000, let's say 300,000, in the last 500 years of America, 350 years, whatever it is. Yeah. Let's say it's 300,000. Let's say it's 300,000. Israel killing Arabs? Not even close. Not, even what they're claiming is genocide's not even close. Because if we were committing genocide, we're doing a terrible job. An absolute terrible job, at that. But those numbers, I'd be surprised it's even 10%. It's even 10% compared to the Indians. I'd be shocked it was more than that. Yeah, but again, it's a totally different situation. Right? 100% totally different different situation. All right, let me see. So it says that America never called Thanksgiving a holiday. There's an opinion. Again, there is an opinion that says it started off as a holy day. Okay. I said there is an opinion. I didn't say it's the opinion. The majority opinion wasn't. 100% it wasn't. Right? It's not considered a holy day. Yeah. Not only is it not considered a holy day, today doesn't mean anything. Right? Today doesn't mean anything. So again, a person wants to be thankful. There's nothing wrong with being thankful. The question is, should I be thankful like what the non-Jews around me do? That's the question. Right? That's the fundamental question. Someone here agrees. We live in a Greek world, 100%. And that's what it represents. Football is a great thing. I'm not talking about soccer, American football, whatever. It's a whole Greek thing. We're living in a Greek world. It's very good for, preparation for Hanukkah. It's all the values they brought to the world of, worship of the body and sports and, all kinds of things. All kinds of things. So again, you have to know how to navigate the world, as we always say. You have to know how to navigate it. That's true. No, I'm not going to say all of it is bad. A lot of it, though, is negative. A lot of it takes the person away from Torah. Yeah. What are the three biggest things in the 20th century that took Jews away from Torah? There were pogroms. There was difficulty, no question. You had socialism, communism, and democracy. Those three things by themselves, besides, World War II, destroyed most of world Jewry. Not including America, right? And Europe. Destroyed. Not to mention 6 million people were killed, okay. But there were tens of thousands leaving Judaism anyway, right? Intermarriage in what do you call it? Germany was 80%. I mean, very, very high percentage. They were leaving by leaps and bounds because of all this. Because of all this, because of everything around them. Because of socialism, communism, and democracy, destroyed. Destroyed, not to mention the war that physically killed people, but there were people, tens of thousands leaving in droves. That's the power. That is the power. Napoleon, Napoleon, when he opened up the ghetto in France, what was the first thing Jews did when they opened up the ghetto? Intermarried. Went to universities, intermarried, disaster. Anytime that's happened and the Jews are part of society, this is what happens. I'm not saying everybody, but it's a very high percentage. Very, very high percentage are going to leave their roots because they want to see the world. They want to live in the world. Enjoy the world, just like the Greeks. What makes them any different? Nothing. Nothing makes them different if they don't have Torah. The fact they have Torah makes them different. Very good. That's what makes them different. But if you don't have Torah, what makes the difference between you and a Greek? Nothing. Nothing. Eat the same food. You marry the women, or vice versa. You go to their ball games, go to the universities. What's the difference? For a lot of people, you can't tell if they're Jewish or not. You cannot tell the way they dress, where they go. You cannot tell. Yeah, they might face some facial features you could tell. Okay, but in general, what's the difference? They don't dress the same. They're like everybody else. They're in a melting pot like everybody else, and that's a disaster. That is proven to be a 100% a disaster. 50, 60, 70% intermarriage. That's what's going on. Yeah, so you give in a little bit, that's it. The door of floodgates open. That's what happened. Every single place, that's the way it's been. The Jews been let out of the ghetto, they, part of the population, intermingle with the population, do what everyone else does. What's the end result? Assimilation. That's the end result. Been proven over and over and over. You don't stick to the Torah, you disappear. Statistically, you'll disappear. I mean, it's sad. It's sad. I mean, they got 6.5 million Jews in America, and you have 5.5 million Jews who don't know nothing. They don't know nothing. Can't read Hebrew. The joke is they use their Hebrew name 4 times. Yeah, when they're born, bar bat mitzvah, when they get married, and when they die. They don't know nothing. Zero. And what they think they know, they don't know. Yeah, it's been a disaster. An absolute disaster. Right? That is what the Greek world has brought, has brought decimation to the Jewish people. Someone says there weren't even 1 million. It could be. Could be my numbers are off. Okay. I'm saying I seem to remember that was a number, but I could be wrong. Even if it's 300,000. Let's say it's 300,000. That's what I just saw. 300,000. Okay. So let's say it's 300,000. Yeah, well, tell me 100,000 Muslims were killed by Jews? Not even close. That is not even close. Yeah, if you tell me it's 10%, I'd say that's high. That's extremely high. We got a much smaller percentage. Yeah, but even thousands die. Why'd they die? Because they attacked. They attacked the Jewish people. What are they supposed to do? They're in war. That's what happens. People die. Okay, but I can't even imagine. Can't imagine numbers that high. Um, yeah, what else? Is we kill terrorists, 100%. 100%. Right? So, are terrorists allowed to be killed? If you think innocent people were killed and hundreds of thousands of innocent people, okay. Then you get into, okay, they're using human shield. 100%, they're using human shield. So, quote unquote, some innocent people die. Okay. Yeah, but even so, if you tell me 30,000 people they killed, in the last 10, since 1948, I mean, let me just see. I'm just actually curious on that also. Um, yeah, yeah, let's see. Let's see what the numbers are. Um, all right, so those numbers are skewed. Um, all right, 1948 is only 3,700, let's say. Um, yeah, it's not very much. I mean, even though they're claiming since November, since October 7th, 70,000, 70,000 Arabs have been killed. I mean, that number is very skewed. That number is very skewed. I'd be surprised if it's in a quarter then. But most of them are terrorists. Most of them 100%, most of them 100% are terrorists. So, um, I mean, they're claiming also, again, I don't know where to get these numbers from, that 134,000 Palestinians and Arabs have been killed since 1948. Yeah, 13,000, 16,000 from the war of 1948, 15,000 in the Six-Day War. Okay, so you got 28,000, let's say. Another 2,000 first Intifada, that's 30,000. Second Lebanon War, maybe 15, 20,000. Okay, so now you're up to 50,000. And then the rest, you have like 5,000. 5,000, you got, let's say 55,000. Yeah, let's say. But again, 15, 20,000 people killed during the invasion of Lebanon. Why were they killed? Because they were attacking. Well, that's why they were killed. They were attacking Israel. You can't live in Israel if they're bombing the north like happened last year or 2 years ago. They're totally bombing the north. People couldn't live there. Yeah, so okay, they had a war there. But who are they fighting? They're not fighting civilians. They're fighting terrorists. That's who they're fighting. There's a very big difference. Anyways, but even the numbers are that high. Even the numbers are that high. Yeah, it's not even a comparison, right? Not even a comparison. Um, uh, Someone there says retired airborne infantrymen fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. I can say Americans no more high ground when it comes to combat instruction. Okay, anyone complain how many they killed in Iraq? I don't think anyone said anything about Iraq. Killed tens of thousands there. No one batted an eyelash. But again, war is different. War is different. Not going in just murdering people. That's a different thing. And even if they have targeted killings, even 100% they've targeted killings. Yeah, let's say. What are they killing? They're killing people with blood on their hands. Yeah. So even if they kill 1,000, if they kill 2,000, is it better these terrorists are dead? The terrorists. Yeah, we're not talking civilians. And even some civilians get caught in between. Okay, that's bad. Right? But what are you going to do? They're hiding between, hiding behind civilians. How many Indians have been killed since 1948? How many? That's a good question. Yeah, probably not so many. I can't imagine that many. Yeah. And then killed. Let's see. Um, well, not American per se, but 1 second. Okay, according to this, 4 to 4.7 million Native Americans were killed through warfare, disease, and displacement from the arrival of Europeans in the 19th century. Trail of Tears, very good. thousands of Cherokees died. Okay, so I want to say it's a million. So okay, could be it's less. Okay, right? So you have less now. Doesn't matter. Same, but how many people have been killed throughout these throughout the centuries? Many, thousands, tens of thousands. Yeah, hundreds of thousands. But that's a totally different thing. That's a totally different thing, right? Um, um, Arabs have Israelis killed since the beginning of time. I don't know if they're Arabs. What difference does it make? Let's make one big distinction. We're gonna make one big distinction here. Yeah, Jews normally don't kill for no reason. We're very big pacifists. We'll kill if we have to. But they kill because of war. They don't kill just going to massacre people. That's all we do. That's what they're claiming. That's exactly what they're claiming in Gaza that we did. We just went in there, systematically killed tens of thousands of people. That's not true. Some innocent people got killed because they were used as human shields. Okay, but not the numbers they're saying. Yeah, their numbers are probably cut in half or a quarter. But even so, even if it was 20,000. Yeah, most of the 20,000 or 30,000 people were killed. No question about it. They were terrorists. So it's not a comparison. Just not a comparison. Um, but there is a Talmudic dictum, and that is that if someone is going to kill you, you kill him first. That's not considered murder. That's not even premeditated murder. That's protecting yourself. All the more so in a war. But in all these things, of how many Jews killed Arabs, why? Why? Ask the question. Why did they kill them? You know why they killed them? Because they got attacked. All these times, you think Jews have gone into all these Muslim countries or whatever, and just started like massacring people left and right? I mean, you can stop reading the news, or fake news or whatever. It's total fake news. Yeah, there's no question. Yeah, they're not going and doing that. That's not part of their nature. They're only going to attack people if they get attacked. And what could happen on October 7th? They went attacked and the whole world went against them. You can't go into Rafah. You can't go in, but you can't go in by what do you call it? By with tanks and different things. And what it's going to do? Israel's a small country. Israel's called a small country. 1,200 people. They compare to America, it'd be like 50,000 people being killed. What do you think America would do if 50,000 people were massacred? Massacred Americans. What do you think they would do? It'd be outright war. They shoot first, ask questions later, right? If Mexico was shooting rockets into Texas, what do you think would happen? They'd go into Mexico and flatten them like a pancake because they have to protect their people. And people here were getting rockets left and right and weren't doing anything. They couldn't do anything to stop them or tried to do something to stop them. It's a whole different thing. Numbers are totally different. Yeah, but again, they're fighting for what reason? They're fighting because they get attacked. 99.9% of the time, that's the case. That is the case. Jews are going to fight back. Okay? They're going to fight back. But why are they fighting back? They're not fighting back because they went in there and attacked them. They're fighting back because they got attacked. And so that's war. Be the clear war. That's what's going to happen. But again, even with the targeted killings, even if there were, 5,000 of these terrorists killed, you want to put that in the same equation? It's not the same equation. It's not the same equation. The truth is, Israel's killed more Arabs than Americans killed Indians. Not true. Just not true. All right, let me see other questions here. 10 tribes were exiled. That's true. We don't know where they are. First of all, we don't know where the exiles are. We don't know if they're coming back either. Right? Difference of opinion whether they're coming back. Someone here says, Rosh Feinstein said Thanksgiving is also. So I quoted a tshuva, a response to that says, they didn't say it was, he said to have the bar mitzvah on that day was that you shouldn't do it. Right? So I'll check his other response and say whether he said 100% it's forbidden or not. Yeah. So whatever. That'll double check. What does it mean? A person thinks punishment came to him without any reason. Yeah, you have to look into your You have to look into your actions because if a person does something wrong, let's say, 99% of the time, probably it's because of what you did. It's probably because of a sin that you did. If you did something, if let's say you didn't sin, let's say a person knows they didn't sin. Okay. If they know they didn't sin, then what happens? Then what happens? You have to look into your actions. Yeah, you have to look into your actions. So that means, so the hard part of that is, how are we going to know what we did and what the punishment is? You could have done something 2 years ago, now you're getting punished. You could have done it 6 months ago, right? You could have done it yesterday, but you're probably not going to get punished tomorrow for it. Yeah. So basically, you have to look into your actions. The problem with looking at your action is, how are you going to figure out what it was? So we can assume we probably did something wrong, but let's say you looked into your actions, you didn't see anything wrong. You totally didn't see anything wrong. You didn't see anything wrong. Yeah, so the Gemara says you attributed to Bittul Torah. You could have learned, instead of learning, you wasted time. Yeah, you can attribute it to that. And if it wasn't for that, then you can say it's Yisurim Sha'ava. It's suffering because God loves you to make you pure in the next world, right? It's just suffering, right? But most likely the case is that a person is suffering. They most likely did it to themselves. Either they sinned, or it's something that their soul has to go through. It's one of the, it's one or the other, right? But the Gemara says you should look into your actions and try and see what it is you might have done. Go through your actions and see. Again, the person's going to find out. They're going to figure it out. Good question, right? But if a person knows themselves pretty well, they don't really sin too much. They may find what they did wrong. But if a person sins a lot, probably like most people in general, we try not to, but the things we do wrong at our, at everybody's level, very good. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen is probably something you did, right? That you're not necessarily going to figure out, but still, a person should think, why might this have happened? You should look into your actions. Yeah, are you going to figure it out? That's a different issue. That's a totally different issue. Someone asked, where am I answering questions? This is on Zoom. That's where the question coming from. All right, let me see other questions. All right. Four Muslims died by the hands of other Muslims. Well, that's probably true. That's probably true. A lot of infighting amongst the Muslims. You got Sunnis and the Shiites and them killing each other. Also, you had that between Iran and Iraq. I had that before. I had that before also, but that's probably true. That is, it's definitely more true than Jews have killed them. That's, many, many more, tens of thousands, millions more than what we might have done. We might have done to them. All right. By saying America kills for fun, it says they kill them for fun. But why'd they kill them? Why'd they kill them? And not for fun. I'm saying they kill for fun. Yeah. What else? How should one deal with family members who are offended by JIT's learning keep kosher? You got to ignore them. You can give them the facts. You can try and explain it. If they make fun of it, you move on. It's really not much to do. You're not going to have a major conversation because you're not holding the same sphere. You're not holding, they're not holding the same level and they don't care. So what do? So they make fun. Either it makes them uncomfortable, which is probably the case, right? And they're making fun in order to say, well, you guys are crazy, why you're doing it and this and that, in order to protect themselves. Because you say, well, I believe it's true. You want to hear my proof? No, they're not going to be interested, right? They're not going to be interested in that. So they're going to make fun to say, oh, there's no really point. You're in a cult and you're being brainwashed and you're doing all these things and whatever. Okay. Can't be, what are they doing it though? They're protecting themselves because they want to say that all this stuff is stupid It's medieval and it's archaic and all these different things to make them see for themselves. Why would anyone want to keep it? So it protects themselves. They say, I'm okay at doing what I'm doing, whatever it is. But why? What's the reason? Because I want to make you look bad and make you, look like you're medieval and archaic, and I'm okay, right? So a person can put you down, and make fun as much as they want because they themselves want to make themselves look good. That's why they do it, right? So what do you respond? If someone has an agenda, we always say, in the Haggadah, the wicked son, you don't answer, even though he asks the same question as the wise son. He asks the exact same question. If he asks the same question, why does he deserve an answer? He says you blunt his teeth because he's not asking a question. He's got an agenda. If he's got an agenda, you don't answer. Same thing. Same thing over here. If they're asking a question, it's one thing. If they're making a statement and say, I think this is archaic, I think it's backwards and it's really stupid. Okay. I think, whatever. They're not asking you anything, right? They're making a statement. They're giving you an answer. Do I have to answer an answer? No, I don't have to answer an answer, right? There's nothing to do. If they're going to make fun of you, you can just say, well, I believe it's the truth, and whatever. They continue to make fun of it. You move on. There's nothing to do. You want to look at facts? You want to look at evidence? No. They just want to make fun of it to make you look bad. So, either you just take it and you move on. Or you just say, like, okay, yeah. I just don't want to get under your skin because, as we always say, if someone has a 25 IQ, you're not going to let them get under your skin. I agree. It's annoying, and you just want to go bink. You just want to, like flick them away and whatever. It's annoying. I told somebody, I got stuck in the bathroom and I was saying, tongue in cheek, I said, I couldn't even pray, get out when I was locked in the bathroom. So the person said, sarcastically, it's like, oh, is that against one of the rules? My answer was, I said, yeah, it's against one of the rules. That was it. Right? You can give a snappy answer, you shut them up, that's it. If you don't want to do that, or offend people, so whatever, you just take it, you move on. There's nothing, yeah. I would say pick your battle. Yeah. I'm not saying everything does not have to be answered. Right? At the same time, I would say, not only does everything not have to be answered, you have to pick when you should answer. Yeah. Someone said something like really below the belt, I would say something. Yeah. And even then, I don't know if it's worth it per se. I don't know, someone made a comment, and I just learned like all these like snappy answers, snappy questions, and I'm like, just flatten the person, flatten them. That was it. That was the end of the conversation. Then they didn't ask questions after that. So, you guys are tough. I'm like, listen, you make a disgusting statement. You don't think I'm going to answer it? I mean, I want more knowledge than I had back then, but I'd have a field day with this person today, easily. I wouldn't even break a sweat. The person knows nothing, but he's not going to start up. If you're an idiot to start up. And that's basically what we said in so many words. You make a disgusting comment, you think you're just going to sit there and say, oh, okay, we're going to let you get away with that. No. Right? Again, even something like that, it's just like, you move on. I'm not saying you can't say something. Question is, if saying anything's going to do anything. That's the question. Right? That is, either you just ignore it. The problem is it gets under our skin. That's the problem. It's annoying, because then you have to like show all this respect, quote unquote, when they say something stupid. And if you say something disrespectful to them, then they'll call you out on it. So it's, you never win these arguments. You never win these arguments. Why are you getting so upset? Why are you saying something like that? You just made a disgusting comment. Like you shouldn't have to answer for it. Like, the problem in all these things is they don't respect anything you're saying. If they don't respect anything you're saying, then what's the point of saying anything? And There's no point. They're not going to respect it. They're just going to make fun of it. Yeah, like someone told me, it's like, oh, you say this for for your students. Get off your soapbox. Okay, and conversation's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, it was just a major put down. But I had the person cornered, and that was the put down. Okay, a waste of time. Waste of time in general. I threw out a few questions. They liked the questions. I had other things to say. So whatever. You know, is it worth it to get involved in these conversations? No. What if they keep doing it? One thing a person has to show or try and show is that whatever they say doesn't matter. Doesn't get under your skin. It's annoying. I would say it's annoying. It's kind of like a fly. You just want to take something and swat it. That's what you want to do. And that's probably what they deserve. But you got to be respectful. What if they say something disrespectful? Answer them. You can answer them. I be careful what you say, but it doesn't mean you can't answer them. The question is answering them going to do anything? That's the question. And what's the answer? Probably not. Probably not. So you can make a decision. You want to answer them, you can answer them, but the conversation is probably going to go south very quickly. And it could escalate, and then people, name calling and other things, and whatever. I would say for the most part, you just ignore it and you move on. That's probably the best thing. If you have a one-line answer, right? Someone once said to me, making fun of kashrus, told the story before. And they say, if I breathe on your food, it's not kosher. It's just an obnoxious and stupid thing to say. Trying to get under your skin. So you know what I said? I said, no. I said, 100% kosher, it's got bad breath on it. The person just looked at me. I just gave him a one-line answer. Snappy one-line answer. That's it. You say something stupid, I'll answer you. Whether I should or not, it's a different question. But that was the answer. Person looked at me, moved on. That was it. Do you have to even say anything like this? There's even no point to say anything. There's no point. You can say, come on, are you serious? Sometimes I'll tell people, that's the best you got. Come on, that's really the best you have? Come on. God, give me something good. Give me something good to sink my teeth into. Come on. You do better than that. That would go anywhere. It probably aggravates the situation more. Right? Again, so again, it's probably not worth it. But you don't have to be a dish rack. True. Right? You don't have to take it. And people don't care. They're insensitive. They're insensitive. But see, if you say something insensitive back, which they probably deserve, they're gonna say, "What are you getting bent out of shape about?" Well, what did you just say? I was just kidding. I was just making fun. Thank you very much. You have a right to say anything, right? Right. So again, what's the best thing to do? Probably don't answer. You just walk away. It's not worth it. And you move on. 100%, you move on. There's nothing else. There's nothing else to do. It's just that's what it is. And the person's got to be the black sheep of the family. That's what happens. That's 100% what happens. Let me see other questions here. Um, all right. Boy, hot topic here. One second. Um, uh, all right. One second. All right. Let me see other questions here. All right, I guess there are no other questions here, so I'm going to sign out. Anyone has a question, feel free to shoot me an email if you want to have time to speak. You can find me on Facebook at Michael Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos, Q&As, Ethics for Fathers, Book of Leviticus. Want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN